Hello and welcome. Welcome to the Dr. Lake Show. I am really pleased to be here in the new year, 2021. I'm sure many people are happy to be moving forward into 2021. So happy New Year to everybody tuning in. I'm so excited about tonight's show because it has hopefully a feeling of a start to a new year that we're going to be moving into, and I think all of us maybe have a bit of hope that it's going to be a bit more of a better year. And that's why I thought today would be a very appropriate topic to be talking about goal setting and what that means and how do we do it and do we do it and why don't we do it? Trying to understand a little bit more about goal setting. And I'm actually invited a very accomplished goal setter here with me today. Her name is Leah Dumaine. She is a registered nurse who is very, very active in her profession and a contributor, and someone who has takes her job very seriously, is involved in doing some additional contributions within her field. She initiated a colon screening program. She is +2 endoscopy programs. She's a director of the surgery programming, and she's also a very fit person who in her spare time finds time to run marathons and run 10K, and often tells me how she only ran 10K in the morning. So really happy to have you here, Leah.
Oh, thank you. I'm very happy to be here, and thanks for having me.
It's great to have you, and I've been wanting to have you part of my show for a while. Dylan, here
Hello.
you are. Happy to have you here
Hello.
too. Happy
Hello,
New Year,
Paola.
Dylan.
Hello, Leah. Happy New Year.
Hi, Dylan.
So, it's a great topic. It's a topic I've actually been close to my heart since I was really young, because I started off when I was really young doing goal setting with my mother. For some people, maybe they just had it natural skills at achieving goals. Some of us had to learn how to achieve goals. And, and everything from what you and I have been talking about, goal achievement.
Right.
I know it's been something that comes a little bit, do you think, more naturally for you?
I think sometimes when you're looking at your life or what you want to accomplish, I think you just need to focus on something. So does it come naturally? Not necessarily, but I've always had a drive of what I wanted, or I had a vision of kind of where I wanted to go or what I wanted to achieve. So I think that, did it come naturally? Well, maybe a little bit, because I had that drive.
Yeah. And I do think that if, depending on when you start, it does sort of become a habit over the course of years, right? When you've taken on that sort of, it's a mindset. Would you not agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's fantastic that your mother was able to incorporate those skills and stuff in you. I think that would be amazing if we did that with all of our children, right? Because I do think it's a skill. I do think it's something that has to be learned over time. I don't think it's something that is natural, because I don't think we often take the time to look at what is truly important, or what do we truly want to achieve, and how do we actually get there.
Yeah. What you're talking about is something that we actually need to take time to think about. It's, in some of my work, people will look at other people who are achieving goals and see them as having something that they don't have, but it's within each one of us to be able to achieve a goal.
Absolutely. We
Right.
can all do or be anything that we choose to.
Yeah.
Do we want to do the work to get there?
That is a good question. And, I don't know if you have any thoughts, Dylan, yourself, about goals and your own experiences?
I
Putting you
feel
on the
like
spot here.
Yeah, that was kind of a vague one. I have a natural thing inside of me that I feel kind of steers me, whether it's for like good or better or worse. I'm not like 100% sure, but I definitely feel kind of blessed that I feel like that sense of purpose in my life, that particularly in doing creative things that like the goals just kind of present themselves, and I feel very motivated to take them on. So yeah,
So you
that's, I
mentioned
guess, my
about
kind of thought
passion
about
and
that.
and feeling motivated, and I do see you as being driven by a vision and moving towards it, and I also see you as someone who you don't necessarily do the path everyone else tells people they should do. Just get a job, do your full-time job and do your work and then just make money, and that's all you should do, right? Sometimes I think we're accomplishing goals and they're not necessarily our goals.
Absolutely. I think that we fall into that trap very easily, or we're trying to make somebody else happy, or we're doing what maybe our parents thought we should do, or our significant other thinks is the right path for us. Sometimes maybe that's because we didn't self-reflect and figure out and take the time to what we truly want, because that takes work. And it's easier just to have somebody else tell us what to do, and therefore we
Yeah.
do it, but that doesn't fulfill us.
Absolutely. And so this is what my thoughts about that are, that it's not even only about achieving a goal, because even if we can achieve a goal, is it our goal? And I do find we pay a price a little bit more when it's not driven by our own internal passion. Parents expect you have to be a doctor when you get older, or you're supposed to be something we're supposed to be. And you kind of were talking about what you really want and taking that time to reflect on it.
Exactly. And I think that that's where sometimes maybe a little bit of that self-sabotage can come into play too. Because if we're actually taking on a goal that it's somebody else's goal, that it's not ours, then if we don't achieve it, then moving forward, can we not achieve something? Are we a failure? Do we not then take on something that means something to us in the future because we think we can't actually obtain it?
Yeah.
Right? Because we've already learned that, well, we can't. We can't achieve a goal, or we're not good enough, or something like that.
A lot of that inner chatter that happens, right?
Yeah.
And it can stem from a lot of maybe implicit rules we have for ourselves. Sometimes it can be maybe even real obstacles we run into. So navigating what is your goal, what is your vision, making sure that it is something coming from within you.
Yes.
Because I do think, a lot of what I hear, if anyone turns on any motivational speeches out there, one of the common things we'll always hear is, follow your passion and figure out what you want to do and just follow it. And I understand the reasoning behind that, because I think when it's something that is driven from that inner desire, there is more energy, it's more in alignment with what is truly meaningful for us.
Yes.
And it's easier for us to mobilize ourselves, to engage in that act when it is coming from a source within us.
Absolutely. Where I think the challenge also lies is it truly coming from within us?
Yes.
Is it truly our goal or our vision for our future? So many times we just fall into what's expected, or what other people think, or what other people say. And it's a real challenge to figure out what it is that you're truly saying. I think it's even harder when you're younger.
Yes.
I think it's hard when you're older too, but I think it's a real challenge for younger people to differentiate between what society says and what your parents say and what your teachers say, and what is truly your vision for you, or where your passion lies.
So then what we really want to do is connect to something that is truly coming from us. One of my mentors, Dr. Lee Poulos, who is now retired, worked until his 90s.
Wow.
I always have great admiration for him. But one of the things he always said is, we get what we want, not what we ask for.
Yes.
And I had to think about that phrase a little bit. I thought about that many times. What does that mean? We get what we want, not what we ask for. I remember working with a woman who wanted to lose weight and wanted to be fit, or wanted to see her body in a particular way. So what I grasp is, okay, this is something she really desires, or she has a yearning for. When we actually unpacked that, one of the things she came up with was that she doesn't really want to, like, it was a should more than a want.
Yeah.
She should lose weight. She should, maybe she liked the idea of seeing herself in a particular way, but when it came to the actual lifestyle that was gonna demand a change in her behavior and thinking, she couldn't get her head around that. And so at one point she really acknowledged, I don't really like the idea about having to commit to fitness, and I really like going out and having my takeout foods, and that's part of the struggle. Do you not think sometimes?
Yeah, because if you don't truly want it, you
Yeah.
will. I believe you often will not achieve it. Right?
I 100%
You
agree.
have to want it. You have to want to be willing to make the changes.
Yeah.
In society with our quick fixes, whether everybody wants a magic pill or they want the quick off the internet, or they want everything so quick, they often don't want to take the time to do the changes that are needed to move forward in whatever their goal or achievement or vision is for their future. And that's key. Is you have to. If you want to see a change in your life, you're going to have to change. You're going to have to do things differently.
You will have to do things differently.
Yes.
And that is not always comfortable.
No.
Maybe that would be something I think that is important for people to think about, isn't just what they want, but what in achieving those goals, what does it mean? What kind of changes does it actually mean in their life in order to achieve that goal? I know that you've done lots of events and running events and marathons, and you've initiated programs, but that comes driven from a force, something inside of you.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, a lot of my inner being, I guess, was a little bit of how I was raised and how I grew up. So I was moved out at 15. I was a high school dropout. I got pregnant at 17, and I just knew that I didn't want to raise my daughter the way I was raised, and I knew that I wanted to have a good relationship with her. And so I had a driving force behind me because I knew what I wanted. I didn't necessarily know how I was going to get there.
Right.
That's trial and error,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But you do things differently. So
Yes.
I just did things different than how I was raised.
Yeah. Wow.
Right. And that was just a huge motivator for me because that's what I wanted. And I knew it was important.
You knew you wanted something different
Yes.
from what you'd experienced, and you knew that entailed changing some things on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
Yeah. And that was a motivator. Your daughter was also something that really inspired you
Absolutely.
in making those changes?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you decided that you wanted to be a role model for her and to be a good provider for her.
Yeah. And I wanted to, be in a relationship that I wanted to be in, that I had to be in. So me going back to school, being a high school dropout, but wanting to have a career was really important. So although I worked and I was raising a daughter and, was married, and going to school full time. So it was a lot. Those are the sacrifices that you have to make if that's what you want to achieve. Yeah. And other people, they want to stay at home and be a stay-at-home mom and be a wonderful mom. And that's great if that's your goal. So everybody has different goals, and it's finding out what's important to you.
One of the things I want to really clarify when I even talk about goals, because we come from a consumerist society that has, we often, people, when they think of goals, we think weight loss, money, big job. But I don't think of goals in that way. I think a goal can be anything from wanting greater peace of mind and, wanting more time with your kids. It's anything that is included. It does not have to be a materialistic objective that we're always trying to achieve, or and I think that's really important because the goals we set, I think people think they also often have to be big,
right?
Monumental achievements. And I am a true believer that things start small. And even when I'm working with goal setting or certain goals or visions people want to achieve, sometimes it's building the confidence in yourself that you even know how to achieve a goal.
Yes.
I remember when I was younger, one of the things I would do is I was a non-completer.
Is that why your mom started the goal setting?
I really don't know. It might have been, but I would start books, not finish them. I remember I was taking an art. I was always interested in art, taking art history class, not finishing it. So I had lots of interests, but I was kind of scattered and running all over the place, not finishing anything. Kind of like that ADD, right? Now my interest would just turn. And so seeing things through, one of my goals when I was really young, it became to complete things.
Awesome.
But what happens is and this is what I see a problem is sometimes when people are trying to achieve a goal is they have to wait for the perfect goal. It has to be the right one, and they have to be sure they are going to love it. They have to know for a fact it's going to be the perfect outcome for them. So, of course, they might spend a lot of time contemplating. It might be a career goal, and we can only know so much about how much we're going to love something. And one of the things I've discovered, here's my metaphor, is life for me is like a buffet. And what we can do is taste what's there.
Yes.
We have a taste of it, but you have to give yourself the chance to taste it enough to see if you like it. And we, instead of being scared to set a goal because it has to be the perfect goal, like whether you say, well, I don't know if I'm going to like fitness, or I don't know if I'm going to like something that, a politician or a teacher, that we end up doing nothing.
Exactly. So it's really interesting that you say that because, okay, so one of your goals was to finish, right? Is to finish and make sure that you accomplished or finished all of your goals. But I would want to say be careful too, because I think it's okay to have a goal and then realize actually that's not my goal. This is my goal over here.
Yeah.
So maybe your goal is to you're doing the big normal New Year's thing, especially after COVID, right? Mm-hmm. And we're saying, oh, we want to lose weight now. Well, maybe it's not truly wanting to lose weight. Maybe that's the long-term goal, but maybe it's about I want to be healthier, or I want to exercise more. I want to move my body more. Maybe it's getting more stiff as I'm aging or whatever. Mm-hmm. And you said, well, maybe they won't like fitness class. Well, maybe they won't, but maybe they'll like to go for a walk, or maybe they'll like to join a hiking group, or maybe they'll like yoga, or like there's a multitude of things that we can do, or riding a bicycle that isn't necessarily going to the gym and doing a fitness class to lose weight. Yeah. So just keeping everything open and not beating yourself up if you decide that you don't like it. If you're down that weight loss rabbit hole.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Maybe it's as simple as I want to increase how much water I drink in a day. And I want to eat maybe 2 less pieces of cheese a day, since I know that's my problem. I love cheese, right?
Oh, yeah.
So just something along those lines. Like, let's just start small and accomplish something. And when we accomplish something, then we feel like we can. So we can actually have a bigger goal moving forward. And I accomplished that too.
Absolutely.
And then move forward.
Absolutely. And I'm 100% a believer in that we need to really experience ourselves as being able to make some changes. Mm-hmm. And because when we have lofty goals, and I'm not against having big goals. I'm one who loves to achieve goals. But if we need to start from a place of already giving ourselves credit. I always think things are, one of my phrases is inch by inch, it's a cinch. Not my phrase, sorry. I didn't invent it. But inch by inch, it's a cinch. Yard by yard makes it hard. Yeah. And that every larger accomplishment is actually made up of numerous small accomplishments. Mm-hmm. And so if we can get comfortable with those small accomplishments and start to experience ourselves as being able to achieve on the smaller level, that is really what is the makeup that leads us to these maybe larger goals. It's never we just walk out and then there we go, we achieve something large. And I think maybe we live in a bit of a quick fix mentality in our society, that we can go out and buy something or that we can create it right away. And patience was the word that came up for me for one of the barriers I see for people in achieving a goal is that if we don't see the results right away,
Yep.
that we get discouraged. And as we get discouraged, we tend to give up. And I'm sure that you've noticed some of
Yes.
that. Because
Oh.
you also deal with health goals with the people that you work with.
Absolutely. And I just think that moving forward is it's about, okay, I'm fine with having the big goal, like you said, but you have to realize that big goal is probably 3 years out,
Yeah.
right? So are you going to be happy with having one goal that you can't achieve for 3 years? Or you might not achieve because it might change.
Yeah.
So you are better to, you can have that big goal, but what are the little goals to get you there?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that you can have those successes, so that you can move forward. And maybe it will be a fork in the road at some point, and you'll go, that was my big goal, but actually now I have these 3 choices, and now I've decided I actually want to go down this road instead because that's actually a bigger interest for me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's about learning, right? That's what we're here for. We're here to learn.
Yeah. It's not always about getting to the end goal itself. And in a way, because I was thinking we're all driven by goals in a certain way. I know, for example, sometimes people want to achieve something because they need to prove to themselves that they can do it.
Yes.
And there is some value to that because if we've been in an environment where people are telling you that you can't achieve something, sometimes that one way that we can test ourselves is enough to give us confidence to be able to achieve in other areas.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And so one of the things I was thinking about is, how do we, even if we're getting clear, let's say we've spent some time and we've thought about what we want to achieve or what we want. One of the things I find people do is we wait till New Year's Eve, and we were talking about this just before the show. I'm grand on setting a vision. I like the word vision often because what do you envision for yourself and your life? And I think there's a lot of reasons why it's important to think about your vision. The way we have it structured around New Year's Eve and how people often operate is that they make that initial goal on New Year's. They may be mobilized to achieve it for a couple months, and then it starts to wane and they go back to habit. I don't know if you noticed this, Dylan. Have you been aware of these?
Oh yeah, I do it myself. So
Yeah, well, don't we all, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's I guess something that interests me too, is especially with New Year's, is how we kind of pick ourselves back up after we fail to achieve our goals.
It's the promise of a new year, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is, in one aspect, I think it's great. I think it's great to take that opportunity to say, okay, this is a brand new year. What do I want to achieve this year?
Yeah.
Right? So I do like that. What I think when we fall into the trap of a New Year's Eve resolution, a lot of people say, so what's your New Year's Eve resolution? What do you want to do this year? And I think people do catch-alls. I want to lose weight. I want to quit smoking. I'm not going to drink, or I'm going to decrease how much I drink, or I'm going to exercise more, or whatever it is that they fall into, just as a token of what they're going to say. And therefore then, because it's not truly what they want to do, then it wanes off, they don't achieve it. So therefore, maybe they don't set anything else for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Until the following year. And then they repeat it again the next year. I think sometimes people are scared to say what their goals are because they're scared to fail.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And there is a certain predictability to that failure in the New Year's, if you have not properly engaged with that process of goal setting in really thinking about that vision and seeing what that would mean for your day-to-day living, to actually break it down. And I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritties of goal setting right now until the end of the show, because I think we've probably all heard once or many times in our life, how do you achieve a goal? What do you need to do? I think, there are some stereotypical examples. If you go to a fitness club, people will tell you that the number of people that will, the high tendency to get registered for a fitness club, become a member, is in January.
Yeah.
And we go gung-ho with it. And then after a while, it fades. And I would almost say that there's a number of us that fall into that category, that we wait till New Year's, we set those goals. So how do you actually translate that vision, take the time to evaluate it as to whether it's something you want, and then actually be able to create it? And so maybe, I don't know if we can, what would be some questions we can ask ourselves about that vision to see if it's something we really want to begin with?
Well, I think sometimes too, it's a case of looking at who you are, right? So what is important to you? One of the things that I often will say when I'm talking with other people is I'll say, what legacy do you want to leave? What do you want people to say about you? So how do you reflect that, right? So if I want somebody to say that I'm spiritual, then I need to be spiritual because they're not going to say that about me if I'm not. If they want me, if I want somebody to say that I'm kind or I'm helpful or I'm a good leader, then I need to actually reflect those things. So then I need to think about, so how can I show those things so that I actually know that I'm showing up that way?
Yeah.
So I think some of it is just looking at what is your core belief? What is your morals and values? Like I said, what legacy do you want to leave?
There was an exercise that I would do that was in alignment with that. But what it was to imagine yourself. There's different variations of this exercise. In some cases, they'll say, imagine yourself being 100 years old or 85 years old. And you want to be able, let's say you're doing a speech and you're able to look back, or even on your deathbed, and what do you want people to be saying about you? Or what do you want to be right? What story would you like to write about yourself? What would have you feel good internally to see you live in your life? And finding that heartfelt way of connecting to that goal, which is what you're talking about, right? And letting that become a little bit of a compass. When I use the wheel of life for people, which is a wheel, an image, you can find it online, and it depicts different areas of life. It could be health goals. It might be relationship goals. And, all of those areas are important in our lives. Leisure, career, finances. And when we can look at the scope, the large scope, and maybe New Year's Eve, one good thing about it is it might be a time to do a review.
Yes.
It might be a good time to say, hey, let me look at this. And what areas am I neglecting? What am I not taking care of? But to be able to convert it from a should to a want, I think is an important step. So I have one thought about how to create it from a should to a want. One of them is to really get clear why you want it. What is it you want in achieving this goal? What benefits do you see it giving you? Because if there's some resistance, you mentioned around fitness, for example, maybe I like the idea of being fit. I like the outcome picture, but it's not enough to motivate me. Maybe I'll have more energy. I'll be more vibrant. And because I actually have created just recently, I mentioned to you, a hypnosis on achieving goals. And one of the reasons I create that is because it's about feeding the mindset that allows you to achieve that goal and feeling positive and excited about it. That excitement might last for a few months when New Year's Eve hits, but the problem is we have to keep feeding it.
Yeah.
It is so if we're disconnected from it, it seems I'm going to have to put a decline on that one. Sorry, I had just a phone call coming in. If we don't feed that desire through the course of the year, because that's how often long it might take to achieve something, it starts to wane. We're connected to the desire in the beginning, and then over time we disconnect from it. So one of the reasons I create a hypnosis is to alter the mindset internally around achieving it and creating it so that it sustains itself over time. So I don't want to be just motivated on New Year's Eve.
No, exactly. And
Right.
and then achieving those little goals as long as you go, hopefully then will also sustain that even longer. And I liked what you said also in the fact that take that time to self-reflect and look at all areas of your life, because really our life should be a balance, right? Between work and fun and relationships and health and fitness and all of those things. And it should be a balance. And is there an imbalance there? And that if there is an imbalance, that's actually probably the area that we need to work on.
Yes.
Like one of the things I told you is that whenever I'm nervous about doing something or I don't want to do something, I know that that's what I need to do. And I think that's a perfect example, because often we'll go, okay, I'm really good in my career, but I know I can go further. But maybe that's a disconnect, because maybe you need to spend more time with your kids, or you need to spend more time in your relationship, or more time on your fitness, because you don't actually have a balance.
Yeah.
So sometimes we actually want to go after what we're good at, what's going to be easier for us to achieve. But is that truly giving us that balanced life? And for us, we know historically people need to have a balanced life,
Yeah.
to feel totally fulfilled.
Absolutely.
So I think when you brought that up, I thought, okay, that really resonated with me, and that I think that's an important point. Is let's look at the life. Let's not fall into the goal that's the easier goal,
Yeah.
the one that I don't have to spend, maybe some emotional
Yeah.
energy on,
Yeah.
and make sure that all areas of our life are balanced.
Take time to reflect on it. And I think what can happen, and because I deal with the subconscious mind, is the understanding that we are creatures of habit. And, bottom line, we are creatures of habit. And the thing about setting a goal that might be a variation from what we're used to, it means breaking a habit. And, and that's why I would say that, I think the accomplishment of any goal that requires changing a habit is an amazing goal.
Yes.
Even if it's a small one. And even sometimes we can get caught in the trap of going from one goal to the next goal. I know some people that have pursued the goal of making tons of money, only to find themselves in the end, they achieved it. But I remember Beyond Success was a book that I had read, and I'd interviewed the author of it. He had goals towards achieving lots of money, succeeding in money making, and he found himself dreadfully miserable at the end of it because he didn't have that balance. And he pursued that goal to the exclusion of everything else in his life, only to find himself feeling quite empty. And that is, I think sometimes we need to take that time to reflect on whether that is sufficient to fulfill all of our needs when we're pursuing something, not just blindly doing it in that way. So I think one thing I've done with my partner recently is we actually did some goal setting recently.
Awesome.
Yeah. But one of the things I do is we've made an agreement and we said, okay, we will meet every couple weeks and we're going to revisit them. And then one of the things we do is we go, okay, how are we in alignment with the goals? What have we run into any obstacles? What do we need to do? Were they realistic? So we really revisit that goal as if not just New Year's Eve. And I am one who, when I was with my mother, we would actually sit every week, and I had this nice sheet, and I would write them down, and then we'd talk what got in the way this week, what could I do to make it differently. So that keeps it fresh instead of that was a goal I set 3 months ago, and I'm so disconnected from it now. And then the tendency is to fall back into habits.
Exactly. Oh, I totally forgot that I had that goal. Right? Oh, I didn't realize how important it was. And I think that's phenomenal that you guys are doing that. I think it is a key because it is about revisiting it. Revisiting the goal. Are you both on the same page? It is about keeping it fresh. And the fact that you do want to make a change moving forward, whatever that goal or is, I think that's really fantastic.
Oh, I was so grateful for that, honestly. And what I didn't know is that was actually exercising my frontal lobe, because it is this part of the brain that really does the planning and thinking ahead and thinks of consequences. Achieving a goal is not linear, and so one of the, I always think sometimes we have detours, and it's okay to have a detour. It's okay to have setbacks. When we achieve a goal, I think we have to get out of that all or nothing mentality.
Yes.
Which is I have to do it perfectly or I don't do it at all.
Being vulnerable.
And to being vulnerable, which means also allowing yourself momentary failures.
Yes.
And setbacks.
And sometimes those failures are our greatest reward because that's what we learn the most from.
They are.
Right?
And so one thing I do if I've achieved a goal or not achieved a goal for that matter, is I will take time and reevaluate. Okay, was it not realistic? Maybe the timing was off for that particular goal. Maybe it wasn't the right goal. Mm-hmm. So if you're not actually achieving it, you might need to take that time to unpack what is it that's getting in the way of it. And that is a process. It's, I love now that we have life coaches.
Yes.
Because that is what their job is, to help you refine your goals, set them. It's not as easy as just reading a little instruction list on what you should do to set a goal, right? Dylan, you have a thought there you want to share?
Not at this exact moment. There's a lot going on in my mind on this. I'm kind of just taking notes on
a little bit of
yeah, a little bit at a time. I like the sort of idea of like the detours because that's something I'm very familiar with.
Yeah.
And it's something I've experienced of like the rocky path of kind of obtaining your goals and going through moments of like just feeling like it isn't like attainable, or maybe that I was like delusional for thinking I could do something like that at the lowest of the sort of trip of achieving a goal. And then when you get there and you look back on that path, like that's a very reinforcing thing that's kind of allowed me to take the next steps towards my next goal. So I guess my big thing is sometimes it might seem like you're not going to make it, and then you do.
I think you made a really good point there, Dylan, in the fact that sometimes we will even self-sabotage ourselves because maybe we don't think we're deserving of that goal.
Yeah.
And so we'll make a goal, but we don't think we deserve it. Maybe we are, yeah, again, maybe we think that we don't deserve it, or that we're not smart enough, or we're not ambitious
Not good
enough, or
enough,
not good enough.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
and so therefore we feel, well, we self-sabotage, or we can't do it, or maybe people have told us that we can't do it.
Well, I mean, I think that is a huge issue, and depending on where you're at in your life, I've certainly met some people who did not feel deserving and were actually really quite vocal and clear about this experience internal within them, that they didn't feel deserving of achieving that goal, or they didn't feel deserving of good things in their life even. And sometimes we need to work those through internally, and sometimes with a counselor or a therapist to establish that sense of worthiness, to develop it, because it's not a goal achievement is not reserved for special people.
It's for all of us.
It's not reserved for special people. It's something. It's not even in the achievement of that goal that is the most important thing. I've mentioned before that on my epitaph, I'd like people to write, "She died trying."
I love it.
Well, because for me, it's not all about the achievement of the goal. It's about the spirit of working towards something. I look at history and I think, if there was nobody to say, have the goal of, let's see if we can fly to the moon, which if you go historically, that would have been an impossibility.
Yes.
And in the absence of that idea, it would never have been even witnessed as a possibility, or the invention of Thomas Edison, who tried over 1,000 times to create the light bulb. And that comes from a vision. I always think the more depressed we are, if we were really depressed, if Thomas Edison was a depressed guy, he might have tried 100 times.
Right.
And then said, heck, I'm done with it. I've tried creating this light bulb 100 times, damn it, and it's not working. And that is where there's this interface between our emotional, what we believe or what we think is possible. And there is, to some degree, we need to evaluate the realism of a goal. But I would also argue that to some extent, that we are pessimists, and that we operate off not believing in ourselves as much. And that can really put a wrench into our pursuit of something. And in fact, not only that, it might even block our ability to even imagine that something could be possible for us, depending on where we are at. I remember I met and worked with, she had unfortunately had gone through lots of trauma in her life. She ended up in the sex trade. And, as someone who has certainly worked with people of varying levels of intelligence, and she was an absolutely beautiful woman, inside and out. And I could also see, as someone who has done my own, I did go through periods where I was doing intelligence testing and recognize how people think. She was a smart woman. The way she ran her life, she was able to take care of responsibilities. She was caring and loving towards the people around her. So she was inherently very, very good, but she didn't believe in herself. And when she made the effort she said she wanted to step out of that industry. But what happened was her self-esteem was so broken that she didn't feel she fit in with the other world she wanted to pursue. And, I think unfortunately that was where she ended up going back to. I still would wish her the best, even if that was the course she took. But that was an example of someone that never really got to that place of feeling they were deserving of it, as you mentioned, right? And how important it is to work that out and believe in the possibility of it.
Living your best life and that you are deserving. And also a little bit of we can make our own reality, right?
Yeah.
So if we get up in the morning and we say we can't do it, you know what? We can't do it.
Yeah.
If we get up in the morning and say we can do it, well, even if we don't do it that day, but we get up the next day and we say we can do it, oh, maybe we don't do it that day, but maybe the third day we say we can do it and we do it.
Yeah.
But if every day we say we can't do it, we'll never do it.
Yeah.
So our mind is an amazing thing. And if we tell it something,
It listens.
it listens. Well, because it doesn't think. We give it the picture,
Yeah.
and it becomes the reality,
It
right?
does become the reality.
So we really do need to be kind to ourselves, and we really do need to put those positive pictures moving, in our head and moving forward.
Yeah. Well, and another thing that I started with at a very young age was self-hypnosis, which is one of my passions among many in my profession. My training is Ericksonian hypnosis as well as regular hypnosis. And one of the things I started with when I was young, I was not a great goal setter. I was kind of a meanderer. I would call myself a meanderer because I kind of wandered all over with lots of different goals, but not sticking. And self-hypnosis was amazing because it was people think of hypnosis as you go to a hypnotherapist, you listen to him hypnotize you, and then you walk out a different human being. I tend to think of hypnosis from a point of view of reprogramming habitual ways of thinking, and that it may not be one occasion in which we work on changing our thinking patterns, but we do it repeatedly. So when I did self-hypnosis at 19 years of age, I did it every single day. Mm-hmm. And I did it for a year, and I actually continued to do it. I think the first year was the most dramatic change because my patterns of thinking changed dramatically from, oh, well, maybe it's too hard to do that, to I can do it.
Awesome.
And experiencing that possibility internally within us, that it's not... Because even if I pursue a goal and deep down I'm thinking, oh, well, it's maybe not really possible for me, then that's when that self-sabotage kicks in. And the more we can program that at a subconscious level, the easier it is to sustain that activity as we're doing it on a regular basis. So another couple points. Let's say we've got all that handled.
Easy.
Okay, let's say we got all that handled. Then comes the other kind of issues around setting goals. One of the other points I have encountered has been the fear of failure, or even the fear of success for that matter. Mm-hmm. Okay. I've encountered some people that there's so much shame tied to failure. It feels so threatening that that they can't even mobilize themselves to consider pursuing it. It's so intrinsically shaming. Or the other one is difficulties being a beginner. I think you've run into people that say, I'm not good at that.
Yes.
I'm like, well, you've never done it. But you've actually never done it.
But they can't handle being a beginner. One of the things in nursing we use a lot is, or we say a lot, or part of our training is, basically beginner or novice to expert, right? Mm-hmm. And so, in the beginning of nursing, obviously you come out and you're brand new, you're a beginner, you're considered, brand new grad, and it's okay not to know things. So then, it's kind of like this 2 or 3 year time that you kind of have that you can still say that you're new, and then after that you're kind of considered to be an expert. It's really hard once you're an expert to become a beginner again, to become a novice again. You have this expectation of yourself. You're supposed to know. You're supposed to be good. It's
Yeah.
very, very hard to be vulnerable again and to say, I don't know.
Yeah. I think your sense of self-worth, or at least all of ours, I don't speak just you, us, me, is so important. And because if we attach our self-worth to success in something, it becomes a much more threatening enterprise to pursue. And one of the things, I actually had it told to me from one of my very early relationships that I had. And he had said to me, "You're not a very good beginner, are you?"
That's interesting.
Yeah. And I was like, what? Because I think I was kind of thinking more along the lines of, I'm just not good at that. And he said, "No, it's not that you're not good at it." He said, and one of the examples was around, it was sports. It was, throwing balls around. Okay, I'm not been driven that way. I've been good in more of the solitary physical activities than I have been in the group sports. And he said, remember that a lot of people and boys in particular and men have started throwing balls from the time they were young. And, you kind of never really partook in that. And yet you define yourself by being that beginner. And one of the things I can say that I've become an expert at is being a beginner.
Awesome.
I started playing the piano 4 years ago, and I was terrible. Of course I was, literally from one note to the next. But one thing that has really helped me is not judging, not knowing, not being really comfortable in the not knowing, being comfortable as a novice, but still being excited and just knowing that every time, let's use the piano as an example, I'm not there, but I can taste what it could feel like to actually be able to play a song. And if I can feel the excitement of that, it's okay that I can only do this, and it's okay that it's taking a long time. There's that theory about when we reach that critical point where, do they say 10,000 hours to be an expert at something, where suddenly it's not hard anymore. And if we can weather this period that feels monotonous or doesn't feel like we're making these huge monumental strides, literally give ourselves credit for the small achievements that we make, so that over time, it's like growing a tree, I would say, because they grow slowly, that it starts to blossom. And that is where patience and self-acceptance and not judging ourselves for being novices, which I think is sometimes what makes people give up, because it's not happening quickly enough. They're just not seeing the results right away. And I think there's the concept of cultivating, and we move away from this quick fix mentality into understanding cultivation, right? That maybe we can not be so attached to the outcome, but enjoy the journey instead of just reaching that destination.
And the learning in the journey.
The learning in the journey. Learning and journey, right, Dylan?
Yeah.
I always take you by surprise. I know that.
I know. Yeah, you take the worst moment. I was just right there with you guys, and then as I looked out and pet my dog and coughed, you tried to call me.
There's one other aspect about goal achievement I think is important to mention, is that sometimes the challenge is about what it means when we change for our relationships. to give you an example, I remember one woman, and she had the desire of being healthier, and that meant eating better, and it might have included weight loss, but it wasn't at the top of her goal or motivating factor. Being energetic, feeling lighter. And one of the habits she had before she set up this goal was to go to Tim Hortons with her friend, and they would have this ritualistic, eating maybe not binging, but eating whatever they wanted, and it was indulging in this rich, maybe fattening food. And what happened was, as she changed her goal, because people get used to us being the way that we were, her friend would get really upset with her that goal, that she was no longer able to engage with her in that ritualistic behavior. Now, that's just one example. I've seen it around quitting alcohol. When you've had friends that have perhaps gotten used to joining in the fun of drinking together, and suddenly they see you not drinking. Have you witnessed or seen that?
Oh, absolutely. And I think sometimes too, with either friends or spouses or partners, sometimes when you are not, I don't want to use the word unhappy, but when you want to see a change in yourself, so you set a goal, and then they think, well, why are you not happy? Or they make that assumption that then they're not happy. They want to change for a reason, and is it something to do with me? So they start to feel insecure regarding that. So I think that is absolutely a big part of it too, is because you can have a spouse that self-sabotages. You can have, somebody who's trying to lose weight, and the husband brings home takeout, or or ice cream, or whatever their favorite thing is, and they have it in the fridge or in the freezer or wherever, and therefore it's really hard for them to maintain that goal that they maybe have, or they smoke in front of them if they're trying to quit smoking, or something like that, and make it way more challenging.
And if you are a people pleaser, and you want to, or you feel like you're going to lose some people because of it, or they won't accept you now that you've changed. I do know when I was younger, and I was making some significant changes when I was about 20 in my life. I had some people that I had to make some decisions, because it meant changing. I wanted to embrace more healthy habits. So it might not have, I had a friend that liked to go out and liked to just drink, and then she liked to drink and cry. Never understood that. but I just really, and I cared for her, but I also knew that that was not a good setting for me to put myself in, nor was it one I actually really enjoyed. So it meant creating some separation. And I think those are some decisions that we have to make. Ultimately, I think a friend, a family member, a partner, that if they genuinely care about you, and they know that your goal is something that's going to better you, that they would be supporting you in that endeavor, even if it means that you might not be able to partake in some of the previous, let's say, habits. And that can be a real challenge for people to make that decision, because I do think it's important that we surround ourselves by people that encourage us.
Yes, and I also think that if you surround yourself with like-minded people, so if now you are into health and fitness, you want to surround yourself with people that are into health and fitness, because it is easier for you moving forward to continue that path.
Yes.
If you surround yourself with people that just want to eat chips on the couch, it is going to be harder for you to maintain that, to make this lifestyle change, if that's truly what you want to
It's so true.
want to make moving forward. So yeah, that might be part of it. That if, yes, your friends can still be supportive, and I think you can have friends that are supportive, but some reality is you might lose some of those friends along the way.
Yeah.
Because they might not be able to support you in that goal because they don't understand it because it's not their goal.
They might not understand it. They might not be comfortable with it. In the ideal world, we will be able to have those kind of relationships that allow for change
Yes.
and are comfortable with that. I do think sometimes there's a great song by Coltrane. I think his name is Coltrane. It's called Transition. And I've mentioned it before, and I'll probably mention it again. But he likens change to being on a trapeze. And the moment that we change is the minute we're letting go of the trapeze we're familiar with. The actual moment of change is when we're suspended in midair before we've actually grabbed on to the new trapeze. And because it's the scariest time, because we're not yet where we want to be, and yet we're leaving what we had in the past. And weathering that in between, that is the most delicate time of change, because sometimes, and I've seen this, people are wanting to make that change, and then their friends start dropping off, and now they feel alone. They're not yet with the fitness group.
Yeah. So they won't let go of the trapeze.
So they won't let go of the trapeze. And that is the most important time that we find some kind of support. I think if you're struggling with that, I do think sometimes getting a coach or even a psychologist, someone that can help you with that. Because when we're establishing a new identity and we don't feel, just to create an example, to make it simple, the fitness one is a good one. You might not feel yet like you're the fit person that belongs with the fit group, or if you're not comfortable being a beginner with the fit group and you feel like you're quite not there, you might have lots of inner chatter that stops you. I think it's important that's why it's so important to master the inner dialogue that tells you that something's wrong with you, or maybe you don't belong in this new setting. The more comfortable you are as a beginner, and even with the discomfort of entering into new groups that you might not be completely feel like you're 100% a part of, give it time, give it time. Give it time to meet those people. Start with one person. It doesn't, I think it's, again, patience, self-love and compassion, and time for cultivating.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Trying to think if do you think we've covered it, Dylan?
I feel like no, you have not. There's it's forever.
So true.
The path of achieving goals. I think something I mentioned earlier that I'd really like to see is how you kind of bounce back and recover from your failed attempts at goals. I remember when I was in college, my teacher would always say, one of my instructors, to fail harder, and it at the time it was yeah, I understand, if you make failures, you go through growing experiences. But the thing that they didn't really ever talk about was what it was like to fail and pick yourself back up and to actually try again. Yeah. So.
So the bouncing back. So how do we bounce back from the failure? Is what you'd like to know about? Okay.
And I think it's a good thing to maybe explore in the future. And I think maybe I'm not trying to leave on a sad point or anything, but it's like you said earlier.
No, but I think
Can
we address that? Can we address that in 5 minutes? I think we can. Yeah. I think we can. It might not be. I do think that could be a show, is dealing with failure, because I actually think that is a really good point that you brought up. It's a funny thing, because there's a difference between failing and embodying the experience of sort of being a failure. I do think there's a huge difference between failing at something and seeing yourself as a failure. I don't actually even think of the word of failure. I don't think of that word because when I look at a failure, I look at, okay, I don't actually even think of the word failing. I think of the word, okay, what went wrong there? I'll go, what went wrong there? Okay, so that didn't actually get accomplished. So I don't even think that the word failing enters my mind because I don't identify with the word failure. I identify with obstacles. And I think in many of the goals that we pursue, we will run into obstacles. Now, I could be my own obstacle. I could be my own obstacle. It could be, what is it that I'm not doing that is getting in the way of my ability to achieve this goal? And I have to do a good and hard look at that. Okay, I'm just not waking up early enough in the morning. Or maybe I haven't really mastered that skill well enough. So I'll look at the me part. I will also take time to look at the outside part. Do I keep doing the same thing outside of me? And am I keeping knocking on the same door with the same person saying no to me all the time? Maybe I need to knock on a different door. So I do not think we are failures. We are not defined by something that was not achieved. One of the meditations I did a lot of when I was younger that really helped me was clearing the inner perspective or inner judgment of the past. The past is absolutely irrelevant to some extent. I am starting fresh today. The past does not predict my future. The past is a memory, is something that I have experienced, but it is not who I am. I am not defined by things that I did or did wrong. We all do things wrong at times, but I want to learn from them. I remember you might have seen the little cartoon where you had a person did the line and they were doing little marks every time they succeeded at something, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then on the other one, they had successes. On the other side, they have learning opportunities. So the word failure is not in my books. And we all fall. I like to think that in life we fall. And they are wonderful opportunities to be able to pick up. But the more we identify failure with our sense of who we are, oh, I'm just a failure, I'm just not cut out, or I'm not good enough, that is the very thing that will stop us in our tracks once we start engaging in that kind of dialogue. I don't know what thoughts you have, Leah, about that.
Well, what comes to mind is I've worked on several project works at different projects at the hospital. And notoriously, doesn't matter how good you do something, how well you plan, how you get everything laid out, it honestly, in the end, it truly doesn't matter because there will be some stakeholder who you didn't realize needed to be involved that wasn't involved. Or there was some fallout that you didn't realize because this is the whole situation or the way the institution works or this particular place works or somebody's view works that you now have to change everything. So even currently right now, when I'm assisting in rolling out two different programs, and like I've done copious amounts of work and I've done all the training and I've done all the letters and I've done all of this work. But the reality is, what I tell everybody when I'm doing it is say, we are still going to have to make changes.
Yeah.
This is not perfect. It's not going to be perfect because there's no possible way that I or we can think of every possible situation that comes up. You just can't. So you have to be willing to be flexible as you go that, okay, well, that didn't work out so well. Okay, so how are we going to do this differently? Or how can we adapt that? Or how can we change that? Right?
Yeah.
And that's just moving forward. And that's just I'll be doing that on Monday.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Well, getting some comfortable. I always came up with, for me, things have always taken a little longer than what I anticipated. So sometimes I say within a year I'm going to achieve this and this and this, and I've really gotten comfortable with saying, things will. I'll just keep plugging away. Now, I do think it's really important to evaluate, to take that time to evaluate what is getting in the way of achieving. I do think that that moment is important. And because if we don't look at what's getting in the way and we just keep setting the same goal, then we're likely keep experiencing the same thing. So I do think, so it might be maybe I'm expecting too much too quickly. Maybe I'm not encountering the right people to achieve this goal with. Maybe I need to think outside of the box. So I think that period of time is important, and also again patience. I've lived with detours, and my detours might have been, for example, I had some health issues. Man, they got in the way of my accomplishing. Or maybe my detour was, end of a relationship. Oh, well, that certainly slowed me down. But does that address a little bit of it, Dylan?
Of course, yeah. I think so. I think like there's still a lot to it. I know that like I've seen people in like really low states because of like points where they feel like they failed to achieve their goals, and when you see people like that, you just want to figure out how to bring them back up, I guess.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. If you're in a low state because you have not achieved your goal, the issue is much more about depression than it is about goal achievement. Because, it's when I see people in the thick of depression, the problem is, let me give you an example. This is a prototype example, and because I'm not, actually naming any one person, but I've certainly encountered this on numerous occasions. You slip into depression because you've experienced some failures. Okay. You start engaging in a lot of negative dialogue, and that might be, oh, I can't get there. It's what's the point of trying? I've tried already. I failed in the past. It takes too long. I'm too old. Why start now? Or maybe it's even, I can't risk another failure. I may as well do nothing. The problem is that mindset that people slip into is going to probably guarantee continued lack of achievement towards their goal. It is absolutely important that we allow for moments of failure in our lives, and that we can not look at that as a defining feature of who we are. It's not about whether you've achieved everything you've wanted in your life. Sometimes we need to rejig it so that we can move closer to something that we're hopeful for, but we cannot do that unless you change your mindset. So if you are trying to help a friend, for example, who is down in the dumps, and you're trying to give him some pep talk to cheer him up and say, hey, you can do it. I know you can. Those words might not be registering for that person, because when we are already embodied and get really depressed from some perceived failures, because we all fail at some point in our lives, okay? And the issue becomes a little deeper than just setting goals. It becomes about remobilizing a sense of hope that has to come from inside. And, when we are dealing with lower self-esteem, I could actually really easily encounter somebody who will argue with me about why they can't succeed. And they will come up with a lot of good arguments about why it's not possible. And the chances are that as long as they beat me in that argument, that they will win. So really the mindset, and that might be another show, is to delving into changing a mindset around failure and how deeply and profoundly it can affect some people, that it demobilizes.
I think
What's
you
that?
did like a great job of sort of addressing the thing that I was kind of thinking about, because like I said, I've had a close friend that I remember seeing in that type of position of like absolute
It's
destitute,
absolutely,
because of their failures.
and what is really
And
hard is it's like sometimes it can feel like you're actually talking to a wall, not in any negative way. It's like you can tell that they're hearing you, but they're not hearing you. And
mhm,
that's because deep down they are filled with some really deep lack of trust and faith in themselves, or some really negative voices that are pervasive. And when one of the reasons I even do hypnosis is because when we create a state that we can actually let words in, we can actually let something positive in, we often will fight those. We'll have a lot of resistance to positive, even thoughts, when we are in that mindset of hopelessness. So, that it is good to get some individual support when I deal with that, because sometimes they can become habits of thinking, and those habits of thinking are we're stuck in them. I don't know if you have any thoughts to add to that.
Again, I'm going to say we partially make our reality by what we tell ourselves. So if you
Absolutely.
continually say, I can't, this has happened to me and this has happened to me and I can't do it and this isn't going to happen, it won't happen.
It
It will
won't
not
happen.
happen.
Yeah.
So, but we can change it.
Yeah.
But if you are so far down that rabbit hole that you can't see the forest for the trees,
Yeah.
then you need to get help to get out of that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Sometimes we can't do it alone.
Yeah,
And
you need
I do
help.
think it's important to talk and get that support. Or there might be other issues in the way. There could be sometimes trauma, and you got to sort of figure out and unpack that for whoever is going through it. So I have a lot of compassion for people who are stuck. And I would still say to them, do not give up. And giving up. I've actually heard some people say, "Oh, it feels easier to give up." And I will tell you, in my opinion, it's harder to give up. It is harder to give up, because when we give up, the consequences of it are much bigger than the consequences of us keeping on moving forward and trying. But what you want to do is you have to try something different.
Yes.
Not just trying the same thing over and over, because that is for sure, we will definitely define ourselves by that. I think we've covered it. No, we may not have covered it, Dylan.
We have future shows.
We have future shows. I didn't talk about SMART, but that is when we're setting goals, that we want to be specific. We want to be specific as to what the goals are on a day-to-day basis. We not want to have them to be measurable, and we want them to be achievable goals, realistic and timely. But those are things that you can actually even find online. SMART is actually an acronym. Because we've already covered an hour and 18 minutes, I think this is a good time to sign off. And my voice, as I can tell, is starting to sign off as well. Leah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, and it was great to finally meet Dylan.
The mysterious
it was awesome
Dylan,
meeting you,
finally.
Leah. It was
We
good
get,
to
so for people
Awesome.
that don't know, I have a little image of Dylan on the screen, and that is why I look up over there. But Dylan, it's always great to have you. You're always awesome.
Great to be here.
Yes, and Leah, that was awesome.
Oh, thank you so much
I
for
thank
having
you
me.
for coming down. I know it was sort of spontaneous, and it worked out perfectly. So really happy to have had this opportunity to talk about, achieving goals, moving forward. Please try to surround yourself by people who can inspire you. And that might mean role models. It could be friendships. Our environment. Remember, we become more like the people that we spend time with. So be careful who you spend time with. And thank you, Dylan and Leah, and wishing you all the best for the new year for 2021. Please be kind to yourself, one step at a time. Remember, inch by inch, you can get to where you want to go. Take good care and have a lovely evening.